You've come a long way, baby. I remember those ads for Virginia Slim cigarettes in magazines when I was growing up in the 80s, always with a woman smoking a cigarette and looking supremely confident and powerful in her own space on the glossy pages. The cigarette companies were marketing toward women that were increasingly holding more buying power. Many businesswomen of that time were even wearing dresses with shoulder pads, as if emulating the shape of a man in some small way would make them part of the club and help cushion their shoulders as they smashed the glass ceiling. I think most of us would agree that women are a bigger force in society every year, and that's a good thing overall. Yes, everyone from fast food restaurants to cigarette makers were and still are doing their part for women's equality. Unfortunately, they also help equalize their cancer and heart disease rates. But you know what they say about making omelets. These days, women don't need to give up their femininity to attain power, and I think that fact, as much as anything else, is a testament to the growing influence of women in society. There are more CEOs, politicians, military personnel, and other traditionally male-dominated roles that have more women in every decade that passes. There are many female role models now for kids to look up to, and that will continue to push expectations higher. About 57% of college students are women in the US, and their earning power is inching closer and closer to parity with men. I see anecdotal evidence of this even in my own life. I make a good living, but Mrs. Zonstar earns a bit more than I do, and she deserves it. We've always kept our finances fairly separate, but I don't mind that at all, especially since she spends more than I do too. Yes, empowered women still love shoes, purses, and shiny things. As with basically all movements though, there are fringe elements in feminism. Those fringe elements are often referred to as radical feminism, although the goals of those in that movement seem quite varied. I watched several videos and read many descriptions of what radical feminism is usually defined as. There's a lot of talk about language. They talk about patriarchy and objectification and various kinds of rape that almost nobody considers anything remotely like rape. Encouraging a woman to have children apparently is rape to some people, where most would find that merely annoying. There's also talk about jokes. Now, I realize there's certainly a way to joke about things that's funny and a way that's offensive, but most women I know will tell you if you're socially inept enough to go way over the line. I've heard many a smart, liberated woman laugh heartily at a joke about making a guy a sandwich. It's okay to laugh about these things. There's a segment of radical feminism that embraces Marxism as a path to women's equality. I guess some people make the Marxism-Communism distinction, but to me, when a single ideology is in power without room to overturn it, there's going to be some corruption and inequality on a massive scale, and not just between men and women. If the tactics of some of the radical feminists on YouTube are any indication, the slash-and-burn rhetoric and dishonest tactics would continue in any country that they would run. The embrace of that particular political philosophy as a cure for social inequality is perplexing too, since communism isn't exactly known for looking out for people's rights. Just ask anyone that publicly dissents in China or Cuba. Oh, that's right, you can't, because they're imprisoned. More than any one particular issue that I see as counterproductive, though, it's the war mentality that I see among radical feminists that bothers me the most. Now, I know that a lot of men have been and are still acting against the interests of women, and they should be fought against. I've talked a great deal about a lot of those issues, and I'm on the side of most feminists on all of these issues. What I don't like is that instead of working to remove the battle lines altogether, their strategy seems to be to reject all but their specific version of feminist ideals, and keep the battle raging by adding fuel to every fire. Thankfully, though, every day I see more powerful, self-assured women stepping up to the plate and flexing their intellect. Most of them have no use for any radical pseudo-utopian ideas. They're called radical for a reason. So if you're in a radical feminist movement where most of the women that you think you're helping don't even believe most of what you're advocating for, it's probably time to ask yourself what good you're doing for women. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe we should and do have the same rights whenever that's humanly possible. And I can't demand you change your philosophy, but I can suggest it. I think it would be more productive and helpful if you used philosophies and tactics to help the cause of women everywhere in a way that doesn't remind anyone of a war. Oh, and while you're thinking about that, I wouldn't say no to a sandwich.